2.1 Matter and Organic Compounds. Lesson Objectives. Define elements and compounds. Explain why carbon is essential to life on Earth. Describe the structure and function of the four major types of organic compounds. Vocabulary: amino acid, carbohydrate, chemical bond, chemical reaction, complementary base pair, compound, DNA, double helix, element, lipid, matter, monosaccharide, nucleic acid, nucleotide, organic compound, polynucleotide, polypeptide, polysaccharide, protein, RNA, saturated fatty acid, unsaturated fatty acid. Introduction. If you look at your hand, what do you see? Of course, you see skin, which consists of cells. But what are skin cells made of? Like all living cells, they are made of matter. In fact, all things are made of matter. Matter is anything that takes up space and has mass. Matter, in turn, is made up of chemical substances. In this lesson you will learn about the chemical substances that make up living things. Chemical substances. A chemical substance is matter that has a definite composition. It also has the same composition throughout. A chemical substance may be either an element or a compound. Elements. An element is a pure substance. It cannot be broken down into other types of substances. Each element is made up of just one type of atom. An atom is the smallest particle of an element that still has the properties of that element. There are almost 120 known elements. As you can see from figure below, the majority of elements are metals. Examples of metals are iron, Fe, and copper, Cu. Metals are shiny and good conductors of electricity and heat. Nonmetal elements are far fewer in number. They include hydrogen, H, and oxygen, O. They lack the properties of metals. Periodic table of the elements. The periodic table of the elements arranges elements in groups based on their properties. The element most important to life is carbon, C. Find carbon in the table. What type of element is it, metal or nonmetal? Compounds. A compound is a substance that consists of two or more elements. A compound has a unique composition that is always the same. The smallest particle of a compound is called a molecule. Consider water as an example. A molecule of water always contains one atom of oxygen and two atoms of hydrogen. The composition of water is expressed by the chemical formula H2O. A model of a water molecule is shown in figure below. Water molecule. A water molecule always has this composition, one atom of oxygen and two atoms of hydrogen. What causes the atoms of a water molecule to stick together? The answer is chemical bonds. A chemical bond is a force that holds molecules together. Chemical bonds form when substances react with one another. A chemical reaction is a process that changes some chemical substances into others. A chemical reaction is needed to form a compound. Another chemical reaction is needed to separate the substances in a compound. The significance of carbon. A compound found mainly in living things is known as an organic compound. Organic compounds make up the cells and other structures of organisms and carry out life processes. Carbon is the main element in organic compounds, so carbon is essential to life on Earth. Without carbon, life as we know it could not exist. Why is carbon so basic to life? The reason is carbon's ability to form stable bonds with many elements, including itself. This property allows carbon to form a huge variety of very large and complex molecules. In fact, there are nearly 10 million carbon-based compounds in living things. However, the millions of organic compounds can be grouped into just 4 major types: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. You can compare the 4 types in table below. Each type is also described below. Type of compound. Examples. Elements. Functions. Monomer. Carbohydrates. Sugars, starches. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Provides energy to cells, stores energy, forms body structures. Monosaccharide. Lipids. Fats, oils. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Stores energy, forms cell membranes, carries messages. Proteins. Enzymes, antibodies. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur. Helps cells keep their shape, makes up muscles, speeds up chemical reactions, carries messages and materials. Amino acid. Nucleic acids. DNA, RNA. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus. Contains instructions for proteins, passes instructions from parents to offspring, helps make proteins. Nucleotide. Carbohydrates, proteins, and nucleic acids are large molecules, macromolecules, built from smaller molecules, monomers, through dehydration reactions. In a dehydration reaction, water is removed as 2 monomers are joined together. Energy from carbon? It may look like waste, but to some people it's green power. Find out how California dairy farms and white tablecloth restaurants are taking their leftover waste and transforming it into clean energy. See From Waste to Watts, Biofuel Bonanza at http://www.kqed.org/quest/television/from-waste-to-watts-biofuel-bonanza for further information. Carbohydrates are the most common type of organic compound. A carbohydrate is an organic compound such as sugar or starch, and is used to store energy. Like most organic compounds, carbohydrates are built of small, repeating units that form bonds with each other to make a larger molecule. In the case of carbohydrates, the small repeating units are called monosaccharides. Monosaccharides. A monosaccharide is a simple sugar such as fructose or glucose. Fructose is found in fruits, whereas glucose generally results from the digestion of other carbohydrates. Glucose is used for energy by the cells of most organisms. Polysaccharides. A polysaccharide is a complex carbohydrate that forms when simple sugars bind together in a chain. Polysaccharides may contain just a few simple sugars or thousands of them. Complex carbohydrates have 2 main functions: storing energy and forming structures of living things. Some examples of complex carbohydrates and their functions are shown in table below. Which type of complex carbohydrate does your own body use to store energy? Name. Function. Example. Starch. Used by plants to store energy. A potato stores starch in underground tubers. Glycogen. Used by animals to store energy. A human being stores glycogen in liver cells. Cellulose. Used by plants to form rigid walls around cells. Plants use cellulose for their cell walls. Chitin. Used by some animals to form an external skeleton. A house cephali uses chitin for its exoskeleton. Did. Biofuels, from sugar to energy. For years there's been buzz, both positive and negative, about generating ethanol fuel from corn. But thanks to recent developments, the Bay Area of California is rapidly becoming a world center for the next generation of green fuel alternatives. The Joint Bioenergy Institute is developing methods to isolate biofuels from the sugars in cellulose. Lipids. A lipid is an organic compound such as fat or oil. Organisms use lipids to store energy, but lipids have other important roles as well. Lipids consist of repeating units called fatty acids. There are two types of fatty acids: saturated fatty acids and unsaturated fatty acids. Saturated fatty acids. In saturated fatty acids, carbon atoms are bonded to as many hydrogen atoms as possible. This causes the molecules to form straight chains, as shown in figure below. The straight chains can be packed together very tightly, allowing them to store energy in a compact form. This explains why saturated fatty acids are solids at room temperature. Animals use saturated fatty acids to store energy. Fatty acids. Saturated fatty acids have straight chains, like the three fatty acids shown on the left. Unsaturated fatty acids have bent chains, like all the other fatty acids in the figure. Unsaturated fatty acids. In unsaturated fatty acids, some carbon atoms are not bonded to as many hydrogen atoms as possible. Instead, they are bonded to other groups of atoms. Wherever carbon binds with these other groups of atoms, it causes chains to bend, see figure above. The bent chains cannot be packed together very tightly, so unsaturated fatty acids are liquids at room temperature. Plants use unsaturated fatty acids to store energy. Some examples are shown in figure below. These plant products all contain unsaturated fatty acids. Types of lipids. Lipids may consist of fatty acids alone, or they may contain other molecules as well. For example, some lipids contain alcohol or phosphate groups. They include triglycerides, the main form of stored energy in animals. Phospholipids, the major components of cell membranes. Steroids, serve as chemical messengers and have other roles. Proteins. A protein is an organic compound made up of small molecules called amino acids. There are 20 different amino acids commonly found in the proteins of living things. Small proteins may contain just a few hundred amino acids, whereas large proteins may contain thousands of amino acids. Protein structure. When amino acids bind together, they form a long chain called a polypeptide. A protein consists of one or more polypeptide chains. A protein may have up to 4 levels of structure. The lowest level, a protein's primary structure, is its sequence of amino acids. Higher levels of protein structure are described in figure below. The complex structures of different proteins give them unique properties, which they need to carry out their various jobs in living organisms. You can learn more about protein structure by watching the animation at the link below. http://www.stolaf.edu/people/janini/flash-ani-mat/protein%20 structure.swf. Protein structure. The structure of a protein starts with its sequence of amino acids. What determines the secondary structure of a protein? What are two types of secondary protein structure? Functions of proteins. Proteins play many important roles in living things. Some proteins help cells keep their shape, and some make up muscle tissues. Many proteins speed up chemical reactions in cells. Other proteins are antibodies, which bind to foreign substances such as bacteria and target them for destruction. Still other proteins carry messages or materials. For example, human red blood cells contain a protein called hemoglobin, which binds with oxygen. Hemoglobin allows the blood to carry oxygen from the lungs to cells throughout the body. A model of the hemoglobin molecule is shown in figure below. Hemoglobin molecule. This model represents the protein hemoglobin. The purple part of the molecule contains iron. The iron binds with oxygen molecules. A short video describing protein function can be viewed at http://www.youtube.com/watch?v=T500b5yty58 Nucleic acids. A nucleic acid is an organic compound, such as DNA or RNA, that is built of small units called nucleotides. Many nucleotides bind together to form a chain called a polynucleotide. The nucleic acid DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, consists of two polynucleotide chains. The nucleic acid RNA, ribonucleic acid, consists of just one polynucleotide chain. An overview of DNA can be seen at http://www.youtube.com/watch?v=V_Z_G7K6P0 left parenthesis 28:05. Structure of nucleic acids. Each nucleotide consists of three smaller molecules. Sugar. Phosphate group. Nitrogen base. If you look at figure below, you will see that the sugar of one nucleotide binds to the phosphate group of the next nucleotide. These two molecules alternate to form the backbone of the nucleotide chain. The nitrogen bases in a nucleic acid stick out from the backbone. There are four different types of bases: cytosine, adenine, guanine, and either thymine, in DNA, or uracil, in RNA. In DNA, bonds form between bases on the two nucleotide chains and hold the chains together. Each type of base binds with just one other type of base. Cytosine always binds with guanine, and adenine always binds with thymine. These pairs of bases are called complementary base pairs. Nucleic acid. Sugars and phosphate groups form the backbone of a polynucleotide chain. Hydrogen bonds between complementary bases hold two polynucleotide chains together. The binding of complementary bases allows DNA molecules to take their well-known shape, called a double helix, which is shown in figure below. A double helix is like a spiral staircase. The double helix shape forms naturally and is very strong, making the two polynucleotide chains difficult to break apart. The structure of DNA will be further discussed in the chapter Molecular Genetics, from DNA to Proteins. DNA molecule. Hydrogen bonds between complementary bases help form the double helix of a DNA molecule. The letters A, T, G, and C stand for the bases adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. The sequence of these four bases in DNA is a code that carries instructions for making proteins. Shown is a representation of how the double helix folds into a chromosome. An animation of DNA structure can be viewed at http://www.youtube.com/watch?v=QY8DK5 is 1F0. Roles of nucleic acids. DNA is found in genes, and its sequence of bases makes up a code. Between starts and stops, the code carries instructions for the correct sequence of amino acids in a protein, see figure above. RNA uses the information in DNA to assemble the correct amino acids and help make the protein. The information in DNA is passed from parent cells to daughter cells whenever cells also passed from parents to offspring when organisms reproduce. This is how inherited, living things consist of matter, which can be an element or a compound. A compound consists of two or more elements and forms as a result of a chemical reaction. Carbon's unique ability to form chemical bonds allows it to form millions of different large, organic compounds. These compounds make up living things and carry out life processes. Carbohydrates are organic compounds such as sugars and starches. They provide energy and form structures such as cell walls. Lipids are organic compounds such as fats and oils. They store energy and help form cell membranes in addition to having other functions in organisms. Proteins are organic compounds made up of amino acids. They form muscles, speed up chemical reactions, and perform many other cellular functions. Nucleic acids are organic compounds that include DNA and RNA. DNA contains genetic instructions for proteins, and RNA helps assemble the proteins. Lesson review questions. Recall. 1. What are elements and compounds? Give an example of each. 2. List the four major types of organic compounds. 3. What determines the primary structure of a protein? 4. State two functions of proteins. 5. Identify the three parts of a nucleotide. Apply concepts. 6. Butter is a fat that is a solid at room temperature. What type of fatty acids does butter contain? How do you know? 7. Assume that you are trying to identify an unknown organic molecule. It contains only carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen and is found in the cell walls of a newly discovered plant species. What type of organic compound is it? Think critically. 8. Explain why carbon is essential to all known life on Earth. 9. Compare and contrast the structures and functions of simple sugars and complex carbohydrates. 10. Explain why molecules of saturated and unsaturated fatty acids have different shapes. Further reading / supplemental links. James D. Watson, The Double Helix, a personal account of the discovery of DNA. Touchstone, 2001. The Chemistry of Biology, http://www.infoplease.com/sig/biology/organic-chemistry.html. Points to consider. Large organic compounds consist of many smaller units that are linked together in chains. How can the smaller units become linked together? What process do you think is involved? What do you think holds the smaller units together in a chain?